Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our monthly Q&A for September, and we got some great questions for this month, including NVIDIA finally cutting GPU prices on the RTX 4000 series. Are they afraid of AMD? And are there more GPU price cuts yet to come? We'll also cover who's got the best 1440p GPU in 2023. Is it AMD or is it NVIDIA? And we'll cover overclocking, RGB versus ARGB, and more. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like. This makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. Let's start off where else but GPU prices, because NVIDIA just had huge GPU price cuts. That's right, huge NVIDIA GPU price cuts right now, not just on the older RTX 3000 series, but on the RTX 4000 series of cards. Das Tankus Pave, I hope I pronounced that right, asked, do I think that the 4070 Ti basically is that the next card where we're going to see prices drop on it? Because we just saw the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte drop from $500, $50 discount down to $449. Similar $50 discount on the RTX 4070, where the price went from $600 to $549. Why did that happen? Competition in the marketplace. And also, I think good news, NVIDIA has clearly not given up, and they're not ready to cede the gaming GPU market and just dump everything into AI like a lot of us were unfortunately kind of concerned about, rightly so. But it looks like NVIDIA is here to slug it out. We love GPU price wars. GPU price wars, 2 thumbs up. So obviously AMD introduced the 7800 XT 16 gigabyte. That card completely sold out. It came with a premium copy of Starfield. Can still get it probably by the time this video goes live as well, but it turned out to be such a great value, completely sold out. It is only the 3rd GPU launch in this generation to completely sell out, 4090 being the obvious one. That sold out for a long time. The 7900 XTX also sold out hugely, and nothing else has sold out since until the 7800 XT, which is 2 thumbs up. I think we want to see things sell out. I think we want to see people engage. The reason things sell out is because people feel like there's value there. So we've had value at the high end. I think the 4090 is a high value card if you can afford one, but that's a small segment of the gaming market. We want to see that same level of value at the lower end as well, where we've been just getting reamed for a couple of years now. So when AMD released the 7800 XT 16 gigabyte card, NVIDIA felt like it had to respond. And it's great to see that they actually felt like they had to respond. I want to see a price war. I think that's great for consumers. It'll help bring the GPU market, at least the current generation of cards. The older generation of cards out there, they're all really good value. We go through them all the time. 6700 XT, 12 gigabyte, insane value. The RX 6600, 8 gigabyte card, if you're on an ultra budget, $199. It comes with a copy of Starfield. It's like an insane value. But once you get past that 6700 XT, the cards just stopped making sense. They just stopped making sense, especially on the NVIDIA side where they didn't have enough VRAM. So it's great to see these kind of price cuts coming. And I do think we're going to see it on the 4070 Ti. Here's why. AMD allowed the price of the 7900 XT, which is a competitor to the 4070 Ti, despite the fact that it has 20 gigs of VRAM versus the 12 gigs on the 4070 Ti, it allowed that card to fall all the way down to about $700 from its really stupid $899 MSRP. But you'll notice in the last couple of months, it's bounced all the way up almost to $800. Clearly wasn't selling there. I checked it today. It's back down to $749. I think AMD is going to let that card price continue to fall because they want to sell that card. They clearly want to sell that card. And I think NVIDIA probably is not going to have any choice because honestly, the 4070 Ti, it's a great card. It just doesn't have enough VRAM. It's like putting terrible tires on your Ferrari, basically, like white wall tires on your Ferrari. You're not going to get very good performance out of it, even though it's a super fast car. So yes, I do think that we're going to see price cuts on the 4070 Ti. I think it's inevitable that we'll see the 4080 price also drop. I don't ever think that we're going to see the price in the 4090 drop. But again, It's a totally different segment of the market that most people are never going to touch. So it's great to see this level of value coming down to where everybody else is. All right, AFA4222 asks, how close do you think we are from AMD holding a lot of GPU market share? It's really up to AMD. Quite honestly, I think we just saw that with the 7800 XT launch. When you price things that are appropriate for the market, consumers will respond. They want to build gaming PCs. They want to update their older rigs. They want to have better graphics cards out there, but they don't want to throw money away on products that don't feel like they're very good. And they love to see things like game bundles with Starfield. So you give them a free game, you price that GPU appropriately, around $500, and it's just insane value for them. So they're going to go grab that. And it's got 16 gigs of VRAM, so it seems like it's going to last for a while for them. They're just going to go out and snap it up. That's what you got to do. And if you look at, conversely, the 7700 XT, nobody's buying that GPU because it's a dumb price on it. It's a dumb price. Just like with the 7900 XT was a dumb price for $899, but it's a good value for $700 to $750. So yeah, it all depends on pricing. And I think we're going to see maybe the same thing with some of the NVIDIA cards start moving a little bit more as the prices come down. So this is another moment when AMD can take significant amounts of market share. Why do I say that? Well, remember Ryzen. Ryzen launched, 2016, 2017, and it was slower than Intel. It didn't game as well as Intel. And it was just not as good as Intel. So what did they do? They got super aggressive on the price, super aggressive. They're like, we're going to almost like give these things away in order to get market share because our company's going to go out of business. AMD was really on the ropes back then. And they were super hungry to get back into that thing. And they just kept offering insane levels of value every generation. That's what AMD needs to do, is just take every time they launch a GPU, it shouldn't just be to fill a hole in some kind of marketing spreadsheet. They should be thinking about what is the value I'm giving to the consumer, because just like Intel got stuck on 14 nanometer and they kind of got stuck and couldn't progress, and Ryzen was able to leapfrog them, we're in that same moment right now. NVIDIA is stuck on these cards that don't have enough VRAM, so they're not really great value. This is AMD's opportunity. NVIDIA is not going to make this mistake next generation. You're going to see them roll out cards with way more VRAM on them. So AMD, it's up to you. Either you take this opportunity when life presents it to you, or you let it pass you by. And honestly, they're the ones in control. All right, Paz Official asks, what's the best 1440p GPU in 2023? Is it the RTX 4070 or the 7800 XT? Assume both are running DLSS 3 and FSR 3. Just a quick segue here. Let's not assume that they're running those technologies for a very important reason. Number one, FSR 3 is not out. DLSS 3.5, not really out. It's coming. They're coming. We'll see how they compare to each other. The second thing is, I've had it just about to here with these upscaling technologies for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of game developers saying, oh, we don't have to optimize our game for PC. There's upscaling technology and we don't have to do any. No, I'm done with that. Game developers, optimize your freaking games. Optimize your freaking games. Enough with the upscaling. Honestly, it's also leading people to make bad decisions. I have had multiple comments on and I'm not going to show them because we're not going to shame anybody. People who went out and bought like an RTX 4060 Ti over something like a 7800 XT because of DLSS. The 7800 XT is 42% faster, I believe that's what it is. 42% faster than the 4060 Ti, even the 16 gigabyte one. Even with DLSS turned on, it can't compete. It's not in the same universe. So you literally just wasted your money, got worse FPS performance so you could get DLSS. It just blows my mind. And I think that it's just confused the whole landscape. So let's set that aside. Let's focus in on what's the best 1440p GPU right now. Honestly, if you bought either one of these, I think you'd be fine. 7800 XT, about 10% faster rasterization. It's about 10% slower than the 4070 is 10% faster in terms of ray tracing. I don't think too many people are looking for super high-end ray tracing at this price point. I think if you want ray tracing, you're spending a lot more money because the ray tracing on these GPUs, it's not that impressive. It's just not that impressive. Ray tracing is a technology that's still reserved for in my opinion, for the ultra high end. So I think you're mostly looking at rasterized performance here, and the 7800 XT just wins. And the other thing is it's got 16 gigs of VRAM versus the 12 gigs on the 4070. And unfortunately, looking to the future, are we going to have titles where the 4070, 12 gigs, where 12 gigs of VRAM isn't enough? I could foresee it. So yeah, I'd go with 16 gigs right now because I wouldn't want to replace my GPU that quickly. If you're somebody who buys a new GPU every 2 years, then who cares, right? Yeah, go ahead and get the 4070, get 12 gigs of VRAM. Otherwise, I would go 16. And if for no other reason, that's why I would focus in on that. The other thing is it's also just cheaper too. So I'm asked a great question. How do you exactly overclock? How does it work? How to do it? When is it worth doing? They're going to build their first PC. They want to know more about this topic. Let me just be really straight with you here. If this is your very first PC build, you do not need to know more about this topic. Don't focus on overclocking. If you're going to get an AMD CPU, turn on Precision Boost Overdrive. We show you how to do that in our how to set up a PC after you build video. For the rest of you, if you really want to get into overclocking, honestly, the first thing I would do is I'd play around, especially if I had an AMD CPU with Precision Boost Overdrive. I might go to the advanced menu and I might try the motherboard limits over the CPU limits. Remember, when we're overclocking, what we're doing is we're trying to run the CPU faster and faster and faster, more clock cycles. That's why I'm doing a circular clock cycle here. And as we do that, we need more and more power in order to stabilize it. Otherwise, it just crashes, right? And as we provide more power, we're use more and more heat. That's why when you see people doing like liquid nitrogen, which is super cold stuff, right? What they're doing is they're trying to push super high clocks, tons of power, but it needs tons and tons of cooling, far beyond anything like an all-in-one liquid cooler or an air cooler could provide. So they're basically using liquid nitrogen in place of that. So there's a couple different things you can overclock. CPU on the Intel side with the KSQ CPUs, you could start off by looking for people who have done stable overclocks on the CPU that you're doing and try and use the same settings as them. See if you get a little bit more performance. The other thing that you can do, obviously, is you can overclock your GPU. Now, with a Radeon GPU, you can actually use their auto overclock feature in the drivers in AMD Adrenalin. So you can just go there, go to the performance tab, and you can play around with that. And you can even try manually overclocking. And there are some guides on how to manually overclock your GPU, especially if you have like an NVIDIA GPU. Is it worth it? I would say in 2023, it's worth a lot less than it used to be because the companies now push these things much harder out of the box than they ever used to do. First of all, the silicon is much better quality. It used to be that they would dial back a little bit on it because they don't want you burning the CPU out and then having to do a return maintenance agreement and give you a new CPU basically. But in this kind of escalating war between AMD and Intel, especially on the CPU side, we now see processors that immediately go to thermal throttle limits on the Intel side. On the AMD side, they immediately go to the TJ Maxx to 95 degrees Celsius, and they're eating all the available cooling to push as much power and frequency through that CPU as they can to just get all the performance. So if you want to manually overclock, you need more cooling, and I would say I would also kind of up my power supply. I would go maybe from a C tier to a B tier to an A tier. You want less and less ripple. You want the power to be cleaner, basically, if you're going to try this kind of stuff. So I would look for an A tier PSU, going to be more expensive. I would look for a bigger cooler. And I would probably get started with what somebody else has done and as stable. And then I would test it. You always want to go ahead and validate it by testing it. So this is not a guide. This is kind of how you do it. I don't really recommend it for most people because the gains just aren't worth it anymore. All right, Philippe Pierre Galski asks, is it worth spending extra money and getting a 7800X 3D versus a Ryzen 7600 on a mid-range PC build with an RX 7800 XT? AMD, did you have to name the GPUs and the CPUs like the same thing? I'll probably mix them up a couple times, but you guys know what I'm talking about. If the main purpose is playing esports titles such as League of Legends, CSGO, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, they're trying to future-proof the build as well. I hate that word. I feel like every time I hear the word future-proof, a PC build goes to die somewhere. What's my main recommendation? Well, the good news is we got a whole video that explains all of this stuff, our best CPU and GPU combo video for 2023. We go through why it makes sense almost at every price level to maximize that GPU. And once you've maximized that GPU, then upgrade the CPU. The only difference here is if you were going to use an older Ryzen 5000 CPU, they do hit kind of a hard wall right around the 7800 XT, kind of 4070 performance level, and you want to jump up there. And the price also starts making more sense because the 7600 platform costs about $150 to $200 more than the Ryzen 5600 platform. So at some point, you're just wasting frames if you don't jump up. But I would say the Ryzen 7600 is going to be superior to the 7800X 3D in terms of price to performance because you're going to take that extra money and rather than getting a 7800 XT get a 7900 XT or get a 7900 XTX. You basically get what I'm saying here. You jump up a GPU tier instead. That's going to give you superior performance. And I get pushback on this all the time. Imagine this. So imagine in 2019, rather than buying a Ryzen 3600 CPU, you went out and said, I'm going to get the future-proofed CPU, Jason. I'm going to spend an extra $100. I'm going to get the 3700X. Well, what would that have gotten you? Because that would have cost you an extra $100. That $100 probably comes out of your GPU. So you get a smaller GPU as a result, right? So fast forward a couple of years, the CPUs now, the 5600 makes that stuff look silly in gaming, right? The 7600 makes it even look sillier. And the difference between the 3600 and the 3700X is so small by comparison, it just didn't make any sense. You wasted all those frames because you could have had a bigger, faster GPU for all that time from 2019 till now, and you could still have that GPU. Maybe it's even worth keeping, and you just drop a 5600 in there or a 5800 X3. So again, I would focus on getting the biggest, fastest GPU you can afford, and then just get a CPU that won't bottleneck it. And check out that video. We go through specific combos at every budget level. All right, Nerds Are asks, Jason, can you explain a little bit about connecting fans and fan headers, especially the difference in RGB and ARGB? Show some examples of software. Well, I go through some examples of software in our How to Set Up a PC guide. So check that out. I'll leave that link down in the video description. As I said in there, tend to prefer the BIOS. I typically use the BIOS to set up all of the fan and the fan curves. It just tends to work a lot much better. That's just been my experience. I don't like most of the fan software that comes on the Windows platform, specifically from the motherboard vendors. I guess Gigabytes is okay. I've used Gigabytes, their fan controller. It's fine. I use ASUS Fan Expert 4 on this current PC right now, just because it's an ASUS board. I don't really like it. I'll be honest, ASUS needs to do more work on it. I don't like when you save presets, you can't then just quickly push a button to get your preset and set your own presets. You have to just deal with theirs. If you use something out there that you think is really good, leave it down in the comments. I'm always open to this. In terms of the RGB, the difference between ARGB and RGB, addressable RGB will allow you to control each and every little light that comes in that fan, so you can get some really cool looking effects. Whereas RGB, or digital, or DRGB, I guess they used to call it, that's the 4-pin connector, that will only kind of do a color at a time. So you can change the colors, but not kind of in the cool way that you can with ARGB. You'll notice if you try and mix ARGB fans with just regular RGB fans, and you try and synchronize them using any of the kind of various RGB programs out there, that some of the functions just won't work. Like typically the rainbow wave function or the color cycle function won't work as well. So that's just something to remember. Well, it's easy enough. You can just replace some of the fans, obviously. You can just get ARGB fans and replace them out if that's a problem. Fans these days are pretty cheap. This is an ARGB set. This is Thermaltake. These are the white ones. I also have the black ones. It's a 3-pack of fans. These are ARGB. And I got this for $14. $14. I'll leave a link to this one down in the video description. You can get the black ones at the same link. Just do that. So hopefully that's somewhat helpful for you. Cleo asks, how do I get such good shots of Mr. Bear? They have a hard time getting similar photos. Mr. Bear absolutely loves the camera. He preens for the camera. He seems to always know where that camera is. And he does stuff like this just all the time. We have another cat. Her name is Xena. She hates the camera. She hides from the camera. It's almost like they know. She knows it's something to be avoided, and he absolutely loves it. Our Los Angeles Kings, I like that one, by the way, asks, hey, Jason, when is the cat getting a raise? This guy, he has already gotten a raise. He gets paid in treats, basically. Anti-Charlie, can we make a video or some sort of vlog talking about your cat? If not, at least put him in your videos more often. Oh my gosh, how much more Mr. Bear do you want? He's like in literally every video. Every now and then, he decides he doesn't want to hang out with Dad. But normally, he won't get more than like 2 feet from me. This is as far away as he wants to be. There's a whole reason for that. Maybe I will do a vlog, kind of explain more of the backstory. Roberto asks, how old is the cat? I believe he is now almost 10 years old. He's coming up on his 10th birthday. We've had him since he was just over a year old. The person who had Ambrosius here, AKA Mr. Bear, just couldn't deal with it. He was traveling a lot, and he decided he was either going to give the cat up for adoption or take it to like the SPCA or something. So we had the cat over, and the first thing he did when he got there is like literally jumped into my lap and said, you know, Dad, basically. That was it. We kept him ever since then. And he's a super huge snuggler. and just never wants to get too far away from me. Watch this though, because the feeder's gonna go off any second now. Oh, there it went. There it went. Oh, he scrambled out. Okay, careful, Mr. Bear. Remember, if you got value out of the video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe. Click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Hey, speaking of cool content, did check out our CPU and GPU monthly update. We go through all the pricing updates for both CPUs and GPUs right here. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. We'll catch you on the next one.